With teenage drivers, I mean, the biggest issue as a parent is worrying about what's going to happen when you're not in the car. And that's exactly what Lewis's concern is, and he has this question for our attorneys.
I have a 16-year-old daughter, and just started driving recently. She and her friends are, always on their phones, calling, texting, things like that. I've, forbidden my daughter to do that while she's driving, and, I hope that she's keeping up with that. But I can't guarantee that, her friends aren't, on the phone while she's driving them around, or, just causing confusion while she's trying to drive. I guess my question is, if she were to be in a wreck of some kind, God forbid, and it turns out that, her friends being wild in the car had something to do with it, does that bring more liability on her as a distracted driver? Does that count as distracted driving, or I just don't know enough about it to know what to tell her. I'm just trying to come up with anything I can to, keep her safe. So, thank you.
Well, so Georgia applies several different driver's license permits. And so when you first get your learner's permit, there's a couple of regulations that prevent you from having too many people in the vehicle. And so when you first get your learner's permit, you have to be at least 15 years old, and you have to have either an adult or someone with a Class C license in Georgia, or a normal driver's license in the vehicle. Only after you've had your learner's permit for over a year can you then get the Class D license, and that also carries a couple of restrictions with it. For the first 6 months, you're only allowed one family member in the car, so that way you can have someone with a learner's permit drive their sibling to school, or they can drive a family member. After they've had the learner's permit for the Class D license for 6 months, then they're allowed to have one non-family member or friend in the vehicle. And so I know you were saying that you're trying to just convince her and talk to your daughter and explain to her about why she's not allowed to have any other people in the car. It's not just coming from mom and dad that you're not allowed to have other people in the car. It's coming from the state of Georgia that unless you've had your license for a certain amount of time, you're not allowed to have any friends in the vehicle. And then eventually, after you've had your Class D license for over a year, then you can move towards getting the Class C license, which is the full license where you can have unlimited passengers in the vehicle. But if they were involved in another collision in which the other driver was at fault, it's still going to be the other driver who was at fault. But where it really could open you and your wife up to some additional liability is if there was a single car accident and your daughter had friends in the vehicle who end up getting hurt. Well, if that single car accident injures those passengers, they potentially would be going after your car insurance to pay for those damages. And so if she's driving around with friends in the car illegally, that could open you up to even more damages and punitive damages if you knowingly allow your daughter to drive illegally with passengers in the vehicle.
Chase, as we go across the Savannah River to South Carolina,
Sure.
Similar?
Yeah, it's absolutely similar laws over there. You need to look at the actual restrictions that the law places on your 16-year-old. There's been a rash of new legislation to go out to prevent teenagers from being in the car with teenagers, driving around, because they recognize the difficulty in remaining focused when all that's going on. But I'm going to explain to you, them being wild and loud and talking, that is all distracted driving. And typically the only time that's really punished is, first of all, if they're at fault, and second, if they hurt somebody really bad. So that can be quite dangerous for her. I'm going to give you some practical advice here as well. If you're worried about this, there are a lot of apps out of there. You are not alone. The parents have almost demanded some sort of way to track their children, to keep them from texting and driving. There are apps. There's one called Plymouth Rock. State Farm's got an app. AT&T has an app. And what it does is it actually locks the phone anytime they go over 50 miles an hour, allows them to dial 911, allows them to use their GPS. And a common feature on all of these apps is that you get to designate a person, a contact person, that is sent a text message and basically with a pin, a GPS location as to where that person was when they actually turned off the app. If they want to access their phone to do other things, go on social media, play songs, it'll send a pin. And if she's on the I-20, right, heading down the road when she turns that off, that's a conversation you guys need to have. So when it comes to the cell phone, that's one thing. And the other, I would say, really apprise yourself of the laws that apply to people with learner's permits.
Good advice indeed.